18th, 2025. The time is now 4:19 p.m. Board Meeting Room, 39 Bank Street, Southeast, Chatham, Virginia, 24531. Let's see. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bowman.
Here.
Mr. Dalton.
Here.
Mr. Dudley.
Present.
Mr. Ingram.
Here.
Mr. Whittle.
Here.
Mr. Height.
Here.
Mr. Tucker.
Here. Thank you so much. Let's see. Are there any items to be added to the agenda? Any items to be added to the agenda? Thank you. Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Is there a
Second.
second? Mr. Height, thank you so much. Moved and met with second that we'll approve the agenda. Any discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Thank you so much. Motion passes 7-0. All right, for the Citizens Convenience, all work session committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed on the county's Facebook and the same YouTube location as the Board of Supervisors business meetings. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communication, discussion, and work. It is not a question and answer session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work session, no questions or comments from the audience will be entertained. Respectfully, any outbursts or disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in the offended person's removal from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and other appropriate parties as designated by the board's bylaws are permitted to make comments under the hearing of the citizens section of tonight's business meeting. Thank you so much. We'll move to item 5A, County Landfill Update. Mr. Adcock. Thank you for being here, Mr. Adcock.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
I would like to introduce our consultant, Mr. John Myers. He's a senior technical engineer with Labella, who does all of our landfill engineering, and he's here this evening to give the update.
Thank you so much. And that's Mr. Again?
John Myers.
Mr. Myers. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time today. As Mr. Adcock said, my name is Jonathan Myers. I am a professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I've been doing work at the landfill at Pittsylvania County for the last 5 years. I'm going to provide this update on the state of the landfill. If you find it boring, please raise a hand and I'll move faster. Other way? All right, very good. I'm going to start with a quick overview of the waste intake rate. Up in the presentation, you can see the total waste that's coming into the landfill is around 150,000 tons per year. This varies seasonally, but the average is about 150,000 tons per year. And I show the various sources of waste in the pie chart. Based on the material coming in, I calculated a average rate or a blended rate of $22.73 per ton. This is subject to revision. Please don't hold me to that number. It was based on some incomplete information, but it's pretty consistent with what we've seen in previous years. As I said, the waste intake rate varies seasonally. The graph on the right shows the graph on the left shows the intake rate. It's been on a steady increase for the past several years. The graph on the right, I'm sorry, you'll have to indulge me. It's for my own edification. It shows the compaction rate achieved at the landfill against the intake rate. I just found it interesting how the peaks on the right-hand side start to coincide, which indicates that operations are coming more in line with the receiving waste. So, small indulgence on my part. Hope you'll excuse me. The landfill is filling in Phase 2 right now. Currently, there is approximately 900,000 cubic yards of airspace left. Compaction rate they've been achieving at the landfill is 1,300 pounds, although that does vary a little bit. And again, as from the previous slide, it varies seasonally. The waste intake rate at 150,000 tons per year equates to approximately 280,000 cubic yards per year of airspace consumed. So, all that being said, we're at approximately 2 to 3 years of airspace left at the landfill in Phase 3. Any questions about that so far? I know I'm moving kind of quickly. 20 minutes is all I got, so. Currently, we're in permitting for Phase 3. Phase 3 will be built next to Phase 2. It's approximately half again bigger in footprint, but the volume, the total volume of Phase 2 on design was about 2.8 million cubic yards. This is 4.5 million yards. So in a smaller footprint, we're achieving more cubic yards of airspace with Phase 3. Assuming a compaction rate consistent with what we're seeing, 1,300 pounds per cubic yard, and the same waste intake rate, that Phase 3 will have a life of approximately 18 to 20 years. Phase 3 development timeline, as I said, we're in DEQ permitting. I would use an expletive to describe that, but you don't have time for that today. We expect permitting to be completed by the end of this year. Bidding for Phase 3 development and construction early in 2026, construction in spring, and all things in order. A certificate to operate, a CTO, by the end of the year. That puts us within the time span of our expected landfill life, although not by much. So we're probably 2 years into our 3 years at that point by the time we get the certificate to operate. This is kind of an ugly chart, looking way prettier on my computer when I did it, but this shows the timeline of the landfill from 2020 until completion, and approximate lifespans for each phase. Again, the Phase 2, beginning in 2020, is approximately a 5.8-year lifespan. That's going to run out soon. We're projecting November 2027 will be consumed completely, and then filling in Phase 3 can start just a little over 19 years for Phase 3. Phase 5 is a piggyback on the existing landfill, the old. If you're not familiar with the site, this won't make a lot of sense, but the old Phase 1 and trenches, the old closed part of the landfill. If we piggyback on that part, we can get additional volume, and that will be just about 11 years worth of life in that. And then Phase 4 would be the largest of the phases. It would be on the southern side of the landfill, and we anticipate a 30-year lifespan for that. So, all being said, just about 60 years of life. Operational costs, a lot of these were pulled from the last board presentation, which was done in 2023. It's my understanding that these haven't changed tremendously, but these numbers are subject to revision. Solid waste collection is a little over $3 million. Solid waste disposal costs, somewhere in the area of $2 million. Capital outlay, and then debt service on the 2021 loan. For a total of about $6.5 million. Didn't miss anything? Yes. Okay. There's a lot of information on this slide, and I apologize for that, but this is a basic graph showing landfill development at the current intake rate. Operational costs, assuming that they're the same amount every year, multiplied by the life of each phase, and the capital cost involved in constructing them. Phase 2C, which is at the top of the list, has a capital cost of $4.1 million. That is construction of Phase 2C, which has already been completed, and it also includes a partial closure of Phase 2 at I think it was a $2.1 million. So I'm going to boil these charts down for you. At the current intake rate, the landfill and these numbers are a little bit deceptive, but it shows a big loss in a big cost at the end for operating the landfill. If we increase the intake rate, currently we're taking in waste at somewhere between 400 and 600 tons per day. If we increase that rate to the maximum, the permitted rate is 1,000 tons per day. We can push those into the green for the lifespan of the landfill, with the exception of Phase 5. But I can provide you some more detail on that if you need. But the takeaway from this is that by increasing the intake rate, we can push the landfill into more of a revenue neutral situation. Sir, question?
Quick question. Now, they're operating in the red, and you're talking about increasing the volume of the capacity. I get that. I guess my thing is, have you taken a look at, tell them I said hello.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Have you looked at actually the tipping fee in terms of, my humble opinion, and of course you're the expert, but I think that they are artificially low. When was the last time we actually took a look at or adjusted the tipping fees?
Yes, sir. I can get to that on the next slide.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
And you're totally on target there. The important thing about increasing the maximum intake rate is that you decrease the number of years. And so at the bottom line, at our current intake rate, 72.5 years of total life. At a maximum intake rate, 37.5 years, okay? Substantially cutting the life.
Right.
But that results in a direct savings because the operational cost multiplied by the number of years is it's kind of a fixed number. This is all kind of smoke and mirrors because we're not figuring inflation. And we're figuring nobody's going to get any wage increases. But to put everything in some kind of framework that we can discuss this reasonably, that's what this is trying to do. So if we look at a rate increase, and this is kind of what I came up with was increasing all the rates to the gate rate of $41 a ton. There's a number of contracts that come into the landfill where the rates are lower than the gate rate. What that does is it increases the blended rate or the average rate to $27 and change per ton. The reason why that doesn't increase it to $41 a ton is because we've got the county waste to figure in there. And so the waste that originates in the county, we figure at a zero gate rate because you're basically paying for that and you're charging yourself the gate rate. Okay. So it's one hand taking away from the other. So really I see it as a zero, big goose egg, which is, the citizens of the county pay for that. So I don't see that as a negative. It's what they're paying for. But if we increase that gate rate so that the blended rate becomes $27 and change per ton, the total revenue increases by $1 million a year. There's no increase in the waste intake, so your landfill life does not change. But you see a lot more of the categories are in the green. Again, there's that pesky Phase 5, and I can talk more about that, why that's in the red. But that's a deeply detailed discussion that doesn't have to take place for the next 20 or 30 years. So Now, about the rate increase. In discussions with Mr. Adcock, increasing everything to a rate of $41 per ton overnight isn't really going to work very well, because some of the contracts that come in are at a much lower rate, and that rate is it's very competitive with other landfills in the area. If we raised it to $41 a ton, you would lose some intake, almost undeniably, because some of the people, I'm not going to mention the company's names, but some of the firms that bring waste to the landfill are saying, well, we pay $23 here, we could pay $25 and travel a little less to go to Halifax, or whatever the situation is, So that would not immediately, it shouldn't happen immediately. It should be phased in over time. Okay, so I present this as an immediate change. I would recommend doing it over time.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Can I get Mr. Thank you, sir, to come up? Mr. Adcock, when was the last time we looked at, or when was the last time the tipping fees or the rates were actually changed?
The gate rate has been that way probably, I would say probably 7-8 years, maybe a little bit less than that. But I know that we did a financial analysis, and was that 2020 or 2021 that basically confirmed that $41 a ton gate rate. We've been doing some research recently to see how that compares with other localities, and yes, it probably needs to be adjusted. But the bigger thing is our contract intake. So we really need to look at that as opposed to the gate rate, because the gate rate will be applied to our local businesses and our local citizenry. So we need to look at the contract rate and hope to change that to get the most out of that without penalizing the local residents and local contractors.
Okay, I was getting to that as my next question. The actual contractors, when was the last time that was changed, that particular rate?
Well, so the current one we've got, and we're going to talk about this later, the current one is that's coming up for renews in May of this year. So that rate was established in 2020, and there was really no, some of those contracts were written with no clause to escalate. So we've been kind of held to that rate until we do a new term on the contract. So that's what we're going to be talking about later, is changing that rate as we go forward.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I don't mean to jump the gun. I'm old. I have to ask while it's on my mind.
Can I follow up?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ingram.
I'm like him, I'm old, I have to ask questions while I'm thinking about it. So you've got contractors that are paid to pick up trash at one rate, they bring it here and they dump it at another rate. And so they're making money on top of money. Is that a fair statement, Mr. Adcock?
No, sir, not really. So when the contractor gets a bid, so they go to, let's say the Danville, Pennsylvania County, or the Danville, Henry County trash contracts. So the localities put those out for bid and say, how much are you going to charge us to take away our trash and dispose of it? So the hauler has to look at the best disposal rate that he can get plus his haul rate, and he combines those two to come up with the bid rate that he bids on the contract. So he's looking at all these different options in the region for disposal, and then he's figuring out, okay, well this landfill is 40 miles away, this landfill is 60 miles away. So what's the difference in my trucking cost? So he's adding that to the disposal cost. So that's where we have to be a little strategic in our development of our prices to make sure that we don't price ourselves out of the game. It's like any other business. We're trying to have the best price But no, the contractor is paying for disposal to us, and then he's paying his haul rate, and he's putting, I guess, a profit on top of it, so he can continue to stay in business, and that's what he's bidding to the locality to get the contract.
Gotcha, thank you.
So just to recap here, the recommendation that I've discussed with Mr. Adcock is increasing the contractor rates, and we've also talked about a modest increase to the gate rate. I think that should be considered. Looking at other landfills in the area, increasing the gate rate by $1 or $2 would be reasonable, and would be consistent with the county's preference to keep the gate rate low for county residents. Let's see. I don't think I have questions. That's all I got. That's all.
I have one quick question before you take off.
Yeah.
This presentation, would you be kind enough to email it to the actual board? Mr. Adcock can probably give you the email addresses, and also, let me say this. I hear you loud and clear. Mr. Adcock, I don't want to chase companies off either. I don't want to price ourselves out of the market. But if we've not changed our contract rate, 8-10 years, and we really are asleep at the wheel, and I'm not saying that we are, but I would, if I'm the contractor, I'd rush to sign that contract before anybody looked up. Okay, so having said that, there is a happy medium in there somewhere, a sweet spot that we can find that we might be able to glean some additional revenue for this county. And, will you all, I guess, we're going to be full in March, but let's try to get back in April after you all maybe examine those contracts and kind of see where we are, and maybe give us some type of follow-up and maybe a projection of what that sweet spot looks like and the potential revenue that could bring to the table. Would that work, sir? Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, sir.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Says I can ask a question. Are we competing with any private landfills that you know of?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Now, what is your ratio as far as the profit, if you know, them versus us?
I had the good fortune of speaking to a hauler this morning at 6:30 in the morning.
It's a good time.
And it's a time when they're up and busy. So just to give you an idea, the haulers, they have a formula. Basically, it's $25 a ton for waste and $25 a ton to haul. Okay, that number varies a little bit here and there, but it's a good number to put in your head, $50 a ton. And the private landfills, and I'm going to speak here mostly of Republic, have several landfills in the vicinity, and their rate is low. So they're $45 a ton, $43 a ton. Your waste managements and Republics can afford to keep those rates low because they can spread the cost out to other facilities. And so in areas where they want to be competitive, they can hold that rate artificially low. I would say to you to probably ignore that. The Pennsylvania County is going to be here for 70 years, and the Republic landfills are not. They're going to run out of space because they take a lot of waste.
I was on the board in 20 when we entertained this idea, and there was some real controversy about it. And to be quite frank, I wondered about it because, you're looking at 70 years, and some of the charts indicated less time. But having said that, I know you're familiar with Mount Trashmore. And so what would preclude us from building up, not so much down, but building up on the existing cells?
Actually, the Phase 3 expansion does just that. It builds on top of Phase 2. We're limited by footprint because we can only come up at a certain slope that's decided by Department of Environmental Quality.
I was testing on that because that was a prior question. How high can we go? And the answer was as high as you want to go, which I didn't think
Yeah,
that
not
was
entirely
totally
true, but there are ways to increase the height by using mechanically stabilized earth walls and items of that, which are highly technical, and I'd be happy to talk about it, but not at this session.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So you can raise the elevation, but we're limited by footprint and slope.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, gentlemen, thank you all so very much.
Thank you for your time.
That moves us to 5B, Zytel Company Overview. That would be Mr. Arnold and Rodney Gray.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm just going to say a few opening remarks, and this is going to apply to all three of the following presentations, one being from Zytel, the other Brightspeed, and the last Verizon. Each of those companies have representatives who would like to provide an overview of their company and essentially request for a letter of support for a forthcoming BEAD application. As you all know, BEAD, probably because of the last two board meetings, we've been asked by other providers, River Street Networks and Comcast, two of which are providers that currently have high-speed internet in Pittsylvania County. BEAD stands for Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. The state has been given just under $1.5 billion to distribute to expand broadband infrastructure to and underserved areas in the state, rather. And so other providers, like I mentioned, besides River Street and Comcast, would like to see if the board would support letters of support that they could append to their upcoming BEAD application. So with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Rodney Gray of Zytel to come up, and then after that we'll have McKinley Perkinson from Brightspeed, and last, Matt Ogburn with Verizon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gray, and welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you very much for having me here today. Put my glasses on so I can see. So I wanted to introduce my company to you today because we're a small regional provider. We're headquartered in Bedford County, right up the road from here. Our corporate headquarters in Manita. So Zytel, we pride ourselves on the fact that we consider our grant applications in the counties that we provide service in as partnerships with the county. Zytel, we do things in those counties that we're in that our other providers, the larger national companies, cannot do. We offer dark fiber services to county governments at all the facilities that we pass. We partner with your local fire and EMS stations to provide POP facilities, points of presence, so therefore there's no ugly beige buildings sitting on the side of the roads with 100-year leases and chain link fences. And in exchange for that space, when we partner with them, we give them lifetime free internet services at our highest business rates. This company was designed based on the fact that we build in rural areas. In 2017, the president and CEO of our company, Brandon Camden, my partner, him and I ran we were an MSP, a managed service provider. We're IT guys. We're computer nerds. We helped small businesses with their computer needs, businesses that were too small to use, to hire an IT director or IT manager to be on staff, and a business that had gotten too big for cousin Bob to come in and work on the computers on the weekends. And we started this company because Brandon was building a house in Bedford County, and one of the national providers wanted $45,000 to bring cable TV services down his gravel driveway for the new house he was building. And we joked about it in the office back in 2015, saying, well, that type of money, we could just become a micro ISP and put fiber in that neighborhood. So we did that. And from that point forward, Zytel grew and grew and grew, and we took some CARES Act funding during the COVID pandemic in 2019 and 2020. We applied for the VADI application for Bedford County in 2022. And one of the promising things about our company is we were one of the top 5 providers in the state of Virginia to finish. We finished in the top 5 and closed out our 2022 VADI build of 417 miles in Bedford County. Some of the keys to the success, I talked about it a little bit. We're a small company. We're not top heavy like Some of your national providers, we don't have a board and vice presidents of that and vice presidents of government affairs. I'm the chief operating officer and one of the principals, and I'm the one that's coming here to talk to you about this. We're not a legacy holdover of the copper telephone communications industry. We're IT guys, so we design our networks completely different based on us as customers in the broadband realm and based on the fact that we design it from an IT standpoint, not from a communications or telecommunications standpoint. Some of the examples are, I used to live in Roanoke, and I would have to call Cox Communications every year because every year my cable TV and internet bill would jump up and double, and I have to call them and threaten to switch to that non-existing secondary provider that we didn't have in Roanoke and to get a lower rate and get back into the new customer rate that was not available to existing customers. So we just decided we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to do that with Zytel. We offer month-to-month service to everybody. There are no special rates for new customers, no special 2-year contracted rates. Everybody pays the same rate as everybody else, new customers and existing customers, and we keep that rate low. We're a small company, so we're very flexible in how we do things. We're very nimble. Unlike our larger national providers where they get stuck into the rut of they have to put the fiber onto an aerial pole line. But yet AEP or Dominion or Southside is going to take 18 months to engineer and want them to replace 40 poles along the pole line that needed to be replaced 50 years ago. We just decided, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to go underground. Example being, we closed out our 2022 body application for Bedford County, and another provider that had won another section of Bedford County had went to Bedford County Board of Supervisors and applied for an extension. So we were the first provider in the state of Virginia where the Board of Supervisors negotiated with that existing provider and said, okay, we'll give you a 12-month extension, but you have to sacrifice 1/3 of your body grant and we'll give it to another provider. They re-awarded that grant, 1/3 of that other provider's stuff, which was an additional 1,500 eligible passings and 150 miles. We agreed to get that process done in 12 months. And as of right now, we'll be done in March of 2025 with a rescope. We were the first provider in the state of Virginia to take on a rescope from that board. If you look at the map, it's a little harder to see. As the previous speaker said, they looked better on my PC before I created the presentations. But this shows our full layout of what we've accomplished in the past 5 years as a fairly new company in Bedford County. We have, as the estimated completion of our rescope, which is our final grant in Bedford County, we're going to have 875 miles of fiber in the ground. We have over 15,000 passings, just under 3,000 current subscribers that we've turned up, and over 1,600 of those subscribers, so over half of them were body funded for the state grants that we took. Currently, Zytel, from private funding, has funded just under $12 million of our own money into infrastructure and build out in Bedford County alone. This next slide shows some of our deployment process. One of the things that we do differently than our national providers and the bigger companies, most of all of their outside plant construction is done by subcontracted labor. They hire subcontractors to come in and build. We hire organic employees to do about 50 to 70% of all of our fiber placement that goes in the ground is done by organic in-house employees. We own our own machines. We started out during our MSP days, and when we were IT personnel, we were the subcontractor that put some fiber in the ground and did installations for Lumos up in Botetourt County. That's how we cut our teeth and how we learned the industry. And so we used the model of it's much cheaper, much more nimble, much more flexible to use in-house personnel and our own contract and our own employees to put that fiber in the ground. This shows a timeline on how we deploy each construction packet, and an estimated time frame for each construction packet that we put out is usually 11 to 39 weeks to get done. Bedford County during the body process was 14 full packets of construction that we submitted to VDOT for permitting, and in that time frame we finished in just under 18 months, which was the original contract rate with the state of Virginia. So looking at Pennsylvania County, our fiber right now comes all the way down into the Huddleston area, just north of Pennsylvania County, right on the county line. We are also a partner with the city of Danville. We ride on their fiber optic network that they host in the city of Danville. We're one of the selected providers there. And so our objective is to come through Pennsylvania County to connect those two networks together. So looking at the zip code map, we're definitely looking at zip codes 24563, 24557, and 24531. Because with the BEAD applications, they're broken up by zip codes. It's not exactly zip codes. There's a lot of, I'm sure you guys have heard this from other providers. There's some zip codes cross county lines, and they call them something else, but I'm not really privy to the exact nomenclature that they use, but we basically just call it the zip code breakup, and you have to apply for the entire zip code. And the objective is for us to try to apply for each individual zip code to connect our builds from Bedford County through the northern part and central part of Pennsylvania County to connect into the city of Danville's network. Unlike our other competitors too, right on the front page of our website, you don't need to put in your name and address and find out if you're eligible and sign up and give us your name and phone number and birth certificate and social security number and everything else to see the pricing of what our rates are. They're right on the front page of our website. We don't hide them. We don't put them out. We show everybody what our rates are. And I think we have extremely good XGS PON service that we offer anywhere from $55 a month up to $100 a month for gigabits. It's under $100 a month for gigabit services to the residents. This is an older slide that I probably should have updated, but as I told Mr. Arnold, we've been out of power in Bedford County for quite a bit, and before we came down here, so I missed updating this one. The ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program, doesn't exist anymore with the federal government. This is what we did at the time to participate in the ACP. We will attest that we'll participate in any program that the federal government uses to follow the ACP or if they refund the ACP. But right now, what we did is Zytel, we have about 100 of our subscribers right now that still have this service and they get it for free. Because if any of our subscribers, we don't create some long form, long paperwork they got to fill out to show financial need. If they bring us any type of documentation that shows they're on any type of government assistance, WIC, food stamps, whatever it is, Medicaid, they bring that in there, we scan it in, we put it in their account, we give them a $30 discount, and they can then sign up for this $30 internet speed, which gives them a free. We have about 100 of our subscribers in Bedford County that take access to that. It's not government funded, we just do it as a company to help the citizens of our area. Some of the new features that are coming in 2025 and 2026, our fiber is in the ground and we're expanding and upgrading all of our POPs. We're going to be offering XGS PON 10 gig circuits to residential customers. So all residential customers that are access to Zytel fiber will have speeds up to 10 gig synchronous speeds. We've launched already, so that doesn't say, we need to say not to launch, but has launched Zytel Business, which is the business side of our services, which offers managed telephone services and managed IT services to our customers. And then we're launching Zytel Cloud. I don't know if any of you may have seen in the news, but Zytel purchased a surplus elementary school in Bedford County, the Body Camp Elementary School. The county put out an RFP. We purchased that 34,000 square foot building. We're going to invest about $1.5 million over the course of the next year to turn that into a data center, corporate research park, and corporate offices for us. So Zytel, we designed this company and built this company building through rural Bedford County. Now we're in Franklin County, Campbell County, and hope to come down in Pennsylvania County. It was designed for building fiber into the rural areas. So one of the things we do, we offer 1,000-foot drops. We do 1,000 foot from the paved surface road or from the roadway where our fiber does for free to the customers. And then from that, we don't charge an arm and a leg to take the fiber if it's beyond 1,000 foot. A lot of homes in Bedford County have driveways that are longer than 1,000 foot. We charge $1 a foot for the fiber. Above that, let's say a customer has a 2,000 foot, 2,500 foot driveway. A lot of our customers in Bedford County can't afford a $1,500 bill over the, for a 2,500 foot drop. So then we do offer a split the payment over a certain number of months, 12 months, 24 months. No interest or anything like that. We just let them, they will contract with us at that point and split that $1,500 over a 24-month or 36-month period. And that's us in a nutshell. I would love to get your support and field any questions you have about us or our company.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Any questions for Mr. Gray? No questions? Thank you so much, Mr. Gray.
Thank you very much for having
coming
me.
to us. Yes, sir. Let's see, who's next? Is this Mr. Perkinson? Is he here? Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Perkinson.
It is a masculine name. It's my
That's-
father's name. So. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, just click which one do I click? Down. Okay, perfect. All right, well, good afternoon. I'm McKinley Perkinson with Brightspeed. I'm actually here speaking to you tonight in place of a colleague of mine, Chris Dillon, who is a male. He's actually in Northern Virginia right now giving a presentation to another community, so we're just kind of tag teaming. But thank you guys for having us. Very excited to be here and talk a little bit about Brightspeed. So I do want to tell you a little bit about our company. We are a newer company. We're about 2 years old. We're a startup, but we're a very large startup. So our executives were actually with a competing company and decided to start their own company. And they purchased all of CenturyLink's assets. So Brightspeed is not CenturyLink. They just purchased their assets with the goal of building fiber out. So we did purchase the fiber that they had built up to the point while they were still a company, and then the plain old telephone systems that CenturyLink was known for historically. With the plan to build out fiber, the end goal is to have fiber as end goal. So just a little bit about our company. I'm going to pull this up on my phone, my notes, because I can't see those numbers. So we are primarily in the Southeast. We cover 20 states. Our headquarters is in North Carolina. It's in Charlotte because North Carolina is our largest state that we provide services in. We are planning to pass 5 million. This slide is a little bit old at this point. We need to update, but we are planning on passing 5 million fiber passings in the next couple of years. To date, we have already passed 1.4 million. So we have been very busy with our fiber passings. To date, we have won over $227 million in grant awards. So we have been very busy trying to get fiber to our rural communities. This is a press release that we just had released at the end of 2024. So our goal was to pass 1.75 million fiber passings last year, and we actually surpassed that with 1.82 million fiber-enabled locations. So that just kind of shows you that we are very dedicated to updating our whole technology and getting everybody on fiber. And this was just released actually just a few weeks ago. So this was from High Speed Internet, and it just kind of shows the rankings of the annual Internet Service Provider Review. So for most reliable, we ranked number 3 with just AT&T Fiber and Google Fiber over us, which we are very, very proud of since we are a 2-year-old company. And then this next slide shows you that we are actually the fastest. So just for our 2 years of being a company, we have actually gained the fastest internet in the market, according to High Speed Internet. So what are we planning for Pennsylvania County? Our BEAD opportunities here. And I don't want to, I'm sure you guys are all aware about BEAD, so I don't need to stand up here and educate you guys on this. This slide is just talking about the BEAD grant, how much Virginia is being awarded, and that our deadline is March 1st, but I'm sure you guys have heard that from other providers. But we do like to point out, you know, ever since COVID happened, we really learned the lesson that our country was not connected and was not ready for what happened and how it was impacted. I was working in healthcare at the time. Telemedicine, it just devastated people in the rural areas, schools. So we realized that we were not where we needed to be with connectivity. So this really is another once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for grant funding. So one of the great things is that the internet service providers are responsible for this. You don't have to be responsible for anything. It falls all on the providers. And you're not required to participate in any funding, so there's no match funding. So that is one of the great things about the BEAD program. The only thing that we really want is a letter of support. And there's no limit on how many letters of support that you can provide. So you guys are really lucky. You have a lot of interest. You have a lot of companies interested in helping your community, so that must feel really great. So the BEAD proposal, we are proposing that we will build fiber to 2,888 addresses in your county. We will enable 2 gig symmetrical speeds for addresses, and it's upgradable to 10 gig. So our fiber product will not have to be replaced in my lifetime. It can be upgraded when any technology is upgraded to need 10 gig, which we don't right now, but it will not have to be replaced. We're using a fiber product that I will never see it replaced. So these addresses include homes, businesses, and anchor institutions in your communities. It's really, we're trying to bridge the rural digital divide. Our focus is primarily in our rural communities. And again, a lot of the issues that we've had with our technology is our old systems that we bought from CenturyLink, and ultimately the only fix for the copper is to replace it with fiber. So that is what our ultimate goal is. In the end, is to replace all of the copper with fiber, but we don't know what the foreseeable future will show and what the date and timeline on that is, but fiber is the really only fix for copper. So with this, it's 599 BEAD eligible locations that we're looking at, but we are going to invest in an additional 2,289 pull-through locations with our own funding. So what that means is that the 599 locations, there's 2,289 that we're going to pull through and go ahead and provide fiber since we're going to be in that area anyway. So this is a significant investment in this county. And again, 2,888 residents and businesses will be served with high-speed, reliable fiber internet. So this is just a quick glance. I like to give a visual, but please don't hold us to this map. This can change once we get into the engineering process if awarded this grant. But we do like to give you an idea of where we are focusing with these grant-eligible locations and where the additional build-out plans will be for this grant. So what are some of the Brightspeed advantages? So we just recently secured an additional $3.7 billion in new financing to accelerate the expansion of our fiber optic network. So that means that we are able to build fiber faster. The more funding and backing we have, the more fiber we can build with that. The impact is the new investment, Brightspeed, can significantly broaden the fiber network reach, potential connecting millions of additional locations. As you saw from the press release that was released last month, we surpassed our goal for how much fiber we wanted to build last year, and this additional funding is going to help us surpass our goals this year as well. More advantages to Brightspeed. We do have team members that live in this community. I live not too far away, right over the border in North Carolina. Chris Dillon is actually in your community a lot of the times because Virginia is his territory. Our network is future-proof. It's upgradable to 10 gigs symmetrical. Again, I don't think I'll see it replaced in my lifetime because it's the latest technology that they have. And the company-funded build allows us to significantly leverage any grant funding. So you saw the grant-eligible locations and how much we're willing to invest of our own funds to build additional fiber in your community. It reduces the funding required from the state. So the more we invest as a company, the less the state has to fund projects for fiber. And it increases the number of residents that are served with fiber. So it's your greatest chance of successful application. Again, I'm not Chris Dillon, but if you have questions, I can answer them. My contact information is available as well, but you also have Chris's information, and we would really appreciate a letter of support if you would be inclined.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Perkinson? Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Ms. Tucker. Thank you, ma'am. I won't even try the name because I don't want to get you guys mixed up, but what area would you serve as far as in Pennsylvania County? I think you said, are you located in Bedford currently?
So, again, I don't want to
I
answer.
know Body Camp School. I just wonder where you're at. So,
As far as our headquarters, or 'cause we serve 20 states.
right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I know we do have some fiber in different counties in Virginia. I don't want to misspeak because Virginia is not my state.
Okay.
But Chris could answer that and let you know where we currently have fiber builds going on currently.
Okay.
But we are in the process for BEAD applications in multiple counties in Virginia.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out exactly where this is going to service.
I think, Mr. Dudley, Zytel was the one that acquired
Body Camp School, correct, yes.
Brightspeed is based out of Raleigh?
Charlotte.
Okay,
And so I guess you all's presence in Pennsylvania County came about as by acquiring CenturyLink
Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
okay.
CenturyLink, Mr. Ingram, do you know about CenturyLink down in your neck of the woods?
I was next in line to ask some questions.
Yeah. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
So I'm very familiar with CenturyLink, and I was wondering about that. And prior to that, it was Sprint, and prior to that, I'm not sure, it was tin cans and string, I believe. But so you guys have purchased what CenturyLink had,
Correct.
which is primarily the old coaxial cable, and you want to upgrade it with the fiber optic.
Correct.
So will there be any limitations on that, like picking and choosing where you're going to run that line?
So, I mean, the ultimate goal is to replace all of the copper with fiber.
Okay.
A lot of it is going to depend on if we win grants in certain communities.
Okay.
We may not win grants in certain communities. Other companies may get those, so they would pick up those areas with fiber for them.
So most of what you run, is it underground or aerial?
It depends on the community that it's in. The community that I'm in, we had underground ordinances in place, so ours is primarily underground fiber, so they put it underground where I live, but it really depends on the area and if there's any ordinances that have been put in
Okay.
place.
I'll save my questions for Chris, and
Okay.
we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for being here this evening. All right. Let's see. I'm hoping that Mr. Matt Ogburn is a mister. I won't botch any more names this evening. Good evening, welcome. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Matt Ogburn. I'm the Director of Government Relations for Verizon in Virginia and West Virginia. So one disadvantage of going third is my presentation is going to sound pretty similar to the last two. So as it was already stated, there's $1.4 billion from the federal government that's come down to the states. We have gone through an exhausting year-and-a-half-long challenge process with DHCD, counties, companies, everybody involved in trying to get the maps perfect with FTC, or as perfect as they can be. So what you're seeing now up on your screen is the final locations that have been decided for mapping now that we will be applying for. And it's going to be broken down into ZICTAs for the application area. And there's a requirement on the ISPs in their application to provide to at least 95% of the locations within the ZICTA that they're applying for. And just as a note, this is only for round one. For round two, after DHCD awards all of the applications, they're going to go back to the drawing board because DHCD's goal is to get to 100%. DHCD is Department of Housing and Community Development in Virginia. Their goal is to get to 100%. So if there is a ZICTA that no one is applying for, if there are addresses that no one has reached, there will be a round two to try to fill in some of the gaps and increase some of these subsidy amounts. So just for y'all's awareness. So I'm sure you are aware of who Verizon is. We are a national mobile company, but also within the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. We are a fiber to the home and telephone service company. Our projected total cost for the two ZICTAs that we will be applying for is between $8.5 million and $11 million, with a projected subsidy request of $2.7 million to $4 million. Our project in total for those two ZICTAs would be 110 fiber miles. And you may ask why we're only applying for those two. So if you, in the packet that I gave you, the second to last slide, that shows our current footprint within the county. That's the footprint of where we are the telephone company. And so one of the advantages of us being the current telephone company already is we already have infrastructure in place. We already have by right access to the right-of-way. We already have permits, easements, whole 9 yards. We already have the infrastructure in place. So we would be building the fiber along our current infrastructure routes to reach these homes that we most likely already provide telephone service. In addition to the 451 locations, as the other folks said, we will also be doing pull-throughs. Pull-throughs is let's say we have to build from A to B to get to a premise, and you pass a lot of homes, businesses, neighborhoods along the way at our own cost, not to the cost of the county, the state, or anybody. We will evaluate all of those addresses and most likely build to a fair amount of them, bringing competition to the county, which will help lower costs. Another couple of advantages of what Verizon brings to the table is we have national pricing. Whether you live in New York City, DC, or any rural community that we provide to, the prices are the same. You can find them on our website. We have 3 tiers, 300 megs up and down, symmetrical, 500 megs, and a gig. We have also, we participated in the ACP program. ACP program went away, but we are still offering low-income services and pricing in a program that we call FiOS Forward. In addition to that, we also have no data caps. So some companies will cap the amount of data and charge you extra for the amount of data you use. We do not have any data caps. We also do not charge for long drops. If you are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 feet off the road, we don't charge for long drops. If we promise to build to your address, we build to your address. In addition to that, we have 1,300 employees that work alone on the fiber and telephone network in Virginia. We have over 6,000 employees in Virginia, 1,300 of which, like I said, works on our wireline network. Our folks are local, they already live in your community, and we pull from teams from around Virginia to build these projects. We do use some contractors, but the bulk of the work is done in-house. These are folks that have been working for the company for sometimes decades. They're experienced, they know what they're doing, and they're local to your communities. In addition to that, because the one advantage of the size of our company is supply chain. We have long-standing existing contracts for fiber providers, all the equipment that goes into the network, where we really don't run into supply chain issues that some other companies might. For example, our fiber comes from a company called Corning. We order so much fiber from them, they built a new factory in South Carolina just to build fiber for us. So supply chain issues are normally not a problem. In addition to that, we have other discounts that we offer for teachers, first responders, military, sometimes government employees, all the above. We've got a numerous amount of discounts to also help lower bills. As you can, so our pricing, if you have a mobile plan and if you have a auto pay, it's $34.99 for our lowest speed, which is 300. So 300 up and down. So competitive national pricing for all of our products. And as you can see, we are looking to build into zip code 24540 and 24527, the 2 zip codes just north of Danville. And I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Mr. Ogburn? Any questions? Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask, could you
Yes,
leave
sir.
your contact information with Mr. Arnold, please?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. No
So
question.
in addition to me being here today, I'm also happy to, you guys got a constituent that says, hey, I've got a Verizon problem, call me. I'll get it solved for you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I'm your local point of contact for anything Verizon related. Wireline, wireless, billing issue. You want to talk about, hey, we need cell phone coverage out here, call me first. I will get you in touch with the right people. I'm happy to be your point of contact for anything you need related to Verizon.
Okay, good. Thank
I'm
you, sir.
based out of Richmond, so I'm not too far away.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
This question is for Mr. Arnold. We'll need a motion on this to write letters of support for these. Is that correct, Mr. Arnold?
You'll need resolutions. That's council.
Yes, sir. Ms. McCluster, similar to what we did last month, we do have the letters of support drafted.
Okay.
I guess if there was a motion to
Move this to the
these-
business meeting?
the approval of these letters of support to the business meeting, right? About, put it on the consent agenda, Mr. Evans, would that be best, or to put it on matters of the work session?
Either one. If
Either
the board
one,
is
okay.
inclined to go ahead and
Okay.
put on the consent agenda, that would be the easiest way once we get to the business meeting.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd be glad to make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Is there support for that motion?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. It has been moved and met with second that we will place the letters of support on the consent agenda, if I understood that motion correctly. Is there any discussion? If not, gentlemen, cast your votes. Thank you so much. The motion passes 7-0. That's for all three that presented tonight. Okay?
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let me see. Staff, we're down to item 6. I think it's 6A. Staff and/or constitutional officers. So let's see. CPMT, end of year report. Ms. Cheryl Boswell. Good afternoon and welcome. Getting close to evening.
All right, so I am here today to do my end-of-year report for you all for the fiscal year '24. It's pretty short and sweet, and I'll try to answer any questions that you all have as we go. Oh, I was like, point it down? It's different than the last time I did a presentation. Okay, so our first slide just shows our yearly allocation. So you can see over the last few years that we've allocated around $6 million a year. We went above that this year in our final. So I work with Kim every year to we really have to guess this because we're doing it about over a year in advance as to how much we're going to be spending for the next year. So for our FY25, we are already have budgeted for all of that, and we should be in a better place next year. I'll get it. The next shows our supplemental chart, which shows how much money we've had to ask the state for over the last few years, and you can see that that has grown some, but they also change our yearly allocations of how much they give us every year as well. So I have a chart and a graph as well for that. The next shows our total expenditures for the year, and you can see from 2019 to 2024 what our growth has been. Which, as you know, back in 2017, we had a lot of growth. We were up at about $8 million a year, and then we brought it down to about $4 million, and then we have slowly grown back to about over $6.5 million. But I think you can see with our expenditures that we have had growth in kids. We're seeing double the amount of foster care kids that we were seeing in 2017, 2018. So even though our expenditures are growing back towards what we came from, it's not due to lack of being responsible for funds. It's because the growth that we're seeing with the amount of kids that we are seeing on a yearly basis. I'm gonna go the wrong way every single time. And this also shows our expenditures over the last few years and how we have changed. You can see our expenditures went up over $1.3 million last year, but we went from seeing about 30 kids in foster care to currently having around almost 70 kids in foster care. We've had like a 40% increase in the last 2 years in how many kids that we have in care at a time. Our private day costs also continue to increase. We don't have a huge increase in kids, but the cost of these services increase. That's about $4 million of our $6.5 million that we're spending every year is spent on private day education for kids in the county. I also think that some of the increases that we're seeing are due to changes with because of COVID and just the effects of that we're going to continue to see for years to come, I think.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Boswell.
Questions?
Any questions from the board? Any questions? Well, let me just ask rhetorically, just for the benefit of echoing. Tell me again, Ms. Boswell, your caseload, how many children are you seeing year over year and the exponential increase?
So we probably see around, if I had to guess, about 200 to 250 kids a year altogether. Currently, we have, I think, 69 kids in foster care, and we're probably have around 70 kids that are receiving private day services. And this can vary from year to year, but we're just seeing the numbers steadily go up year after year. And there's not a lot when it comes to private day education and foster care. Foster care is guided by the judge mainly as to what kids come into care. We don't have any say in that. Same thing with private day education. That is guided by the IEP, which we also have no say in. So, and those are all mandated processes. So we have to fund those things.
Gotcha. As you currently stand right now, as far as funding is concerned from the state and local, how far off the mark is that funding?
What do you mean exactly? Like, how much are we lacking?
Yes.
I think for next year, I don't know that we're really lacking anything. Kim and I try to make sure that we are budgeting ahead for that, and I think we've done so this year.
Okay.
So I don't foresee that we should have that issue again, and I'm honestly hoping that we won't. I can't say that for sure that it won't happen, but I'm hoping that we won't see the growth that we've seen in the last year. I'm hoping that we will kind of level out. And we're trying to come up with ways and things that we can do to continue to serve these families and these children, but also make sure that we're spending our money as efficiently as we can.
Thank you. I understand that you all had a shortfall, and I guess this might be a question for Ms. Vanderhat. We did close that delta in terms of your potential, what we're going to budget. Is that right? Okay. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for Ms. Boswell? Yes, sir.
It doesn't have to do with money, but it has to do with foster families. How's Pittsylvania County when it comes to foster families? Are we meeting the needs, or are we having to send kids out of the area?
So there's a couple, try to give a short answer, but there's a couple of different kinds of foster families. We have what they call regular foster homes within the community. We don't have a ton of those currently, but a new thing that social services at the state level has started is kinship, which allows for children who have families that may live in the area, and it can even be what they call fictive kin, who aren't actually blood related, and it allows for them to have the families as well. We have started doing that a lot more, I feel like, in the past year, and I think we have a lot more kids that are able to go to fictive kin or kin that are within our area. Now, we do have kids that go outside of our area that are in Richmond or Roanoke, and they go to what we call treatment foster homes. So they're a little more, you have to have a little more training to be a treatment foster home or a treatment foster parent. So a lot of times they'll take some of our a little bit more difficult kids or older kids or kids with special needs or things like that.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you.
You're
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Boswell.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Brings us down to 6B, EMS billing rate revisions. Mr. Chris Key. Thank you again, sir.
Good evening again. I want to bring before y'all the recommended EMS billing rate revisions for FY26. This is looked at every 2 years by the Fire and Rescue. Back in September, they formed a committee to look at this and bring back their recommendations. So what I've got before you tonight is what has been recommended by the Fire Rescue Association and approved. This went to the commission and has been approved also. Just going through it real quick, is your BLS non-emergent is currently at 600. They recommended raising it to 700. BLS emergent from 650 to 750. ALS 1 non-emergent from 775 to 875. ALS 1 emergent from 800 to 900. ALS 2 from 1,000 to 1,100. Treat, transport 400 to 500. Patient refusal remained the same at 100. And the mileage went from $18 per mile to $21 per mile. The committee did look at the surrounding counties, what they're charging, and also we looked at our EMS billing company and brought back with this the recommendations we have before you, sir.
Any questions for Mr. Keith?
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ingram?
Thank you, Chris. The patient refusal, why was that left the same, not increased?
That was just what was recommended, just to maintain that amount.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Mr. Bowman?
Yes, thank you, sir. Mr. Key, the amount being charged, are insurance companies paying those, or is that up to the individual?
It's, the insurance companies sometimes pay percentages, they don't pay all of it, and then the rest of it will be on the occupant or the patient. A lot of the Medicare, Medicaid have set fees, and it don't matter what we charge, they have a set rate they're gonna pay. So we could be charging $4,000, and if they're only set at $35, that's what they're gonna pay.
So how do you collect the difference?
It's through soft billing.
Okay. Do we have those folks paying, or?
It's a continuous process.
Okay.
Some do pay, some we have to write off.
Okay. All right, good, thank you.
Sir.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got one.
Yes, sir. Mr. Whittle.
Appreciate you coming out here. But will this help on the drug box thing? Do y'all have anything in there for the drug box to help supply those? Any money coming in or bill them to the insurance company or anything for those guys? This
will help with that some, but we can't itemize and say we use this drug. So it has to be depending on the severity of the call as to what they can charge. So yeah, each increase would help recover that, but we can't go itemized to bill like just for these specific drugs.
Okay.
This is the amounts that we're allowed to charge.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the drug boxes and the replenishing the drugs has been an issue. Yes, sir.
That's going to be an issue.
Yeah, and it's getting ready to get worse with the April 12th implementation date. So.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Key, I'm going to support the recommendation, but I think I think the board deserves to see, and I know you all did the research and you took a look at the surrounding communities and what have you. We would probably want to see that sometime in the future. I'm not going to hold it up, but I certainly want to see what the other communities are doing, to warrant, the type of increases and I understand the soft billing, that sort of thing, but, I don't want to impose undue burden on these taxpayers in Pittsylvania County. Yeah. Okay.
I can provide you what our EMS billing company recommended.
Right.
Because I've got that.
Right. No problem. Thank you, sir. I'm good. Any others? Thank you, Mr. Key.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you. All right. Any matters from the business meeting for discussion? All right. That brings us down to closed session. Mr. Evans, would you read us in, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are three matters designated for closed session, which are, first, discussion of plans to protect public safety as it relates to terrorist activity or specific cybersecurity threats or vulnerabilities, and briefings by staff members, local council, or law enforcement or emergency service officials concerning actions taken to to respond to such matters or a related threat to public safety, discussion of information subject to the exclusion of subdivision 2 or 14 of section 2.23705.2, where discussion in an open meeting would jeopardize the safety of any person or the security of any facility, building, structure, information technology system, or software program, or discussion of reports or plans related to the security of any governmental facility, building, or structure, or the safety of persons using such facility, building, or structure. Legal Authority of Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A19, subject matter, county cybersecurity posture and purpose, cybersecurity update discussion regarding the same. Second matter is consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters, requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Legal Authority, Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A8, subject matter, solid waste contract, purpose, legal counsel, contract consultation. And the third and last matter is discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the businesses or industry's interests in locating or expanding in its facilities in the community. Legal Authority of Virginia Code, Section 2.2-3711A5, subject matter, Project Orange and others. Purpose, economic development, update discussions on unannounced prospective businesses and industries. Mr. Chairman, now be appropriate to entertain a motion, second, and discussion and vote concerning closed session.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain that motion now to move into closed session.
I'll make it.
I have Mr. Ingram down for making the motion.
Second.
Second from my vice chair, Mr. Height. Any discussion? If not, you may cast your votes. That motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Evans, would you read us back in, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, be it resolved that the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors work session on February 18th, 2025, the board hereby certifies by a recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identified in the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any board member believes that there was a departure from the requirement of the act, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure. The statement shall be recorded in the board's minutes. We'll now have a roll call vote regarding the said certification of closed session. Mr. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Dalton,
Yes.
Mr. Dudley,
Yes.
Mr. Ingram,
Yes.
Mr. Whittle,
Yes.
Mr. Height,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this time, we can adjourn the work session,
Pause for the call.
and we'll take a 5-minute interlude.